Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Sela's Social Studies. Today we're going to talk about Jackson's war against the bank and economic issues that arose under the Jackson administration. So first thing we have to understand and talk about is regional economies. Throughout the United States, there were three main regional economies that were starting to define themselves. These economies would lead to a feeling of sectionalism in the United States. Now, sectionalism was the idea that a person would put the place or the person would put the interests of their local region before the good of the whole nation. The northern economy was based on manufacturing and supported tariffs, which were a tax placed on goods. Northern manufacturers believed that American goods could be sold at lower prices than British goods. The Southern economy was based solely on agriculture, and Southerners were opposed to the tariffs because the tariffs increased the cost of imported goods. Manifest Destiny led to an emerging economy in the West, which supported internal improvements and the sale of public lands. This brings us to the Tariff of 1827. So in 1827, northern manufacturers demanded a tariff or tax on imported wool goods from Britain, and John Quincy Adams responded by issuing the Tariff of 1827. Northern manufacturers believed that the tariff would protect northern and western agricultural products from competition with foreign imports. Southerners opposed the tariff because they believed it would hurt their economy. The resulting tax on foreign goods would affect the price of cotton because it left Great Britain, the largest market for Southern cotton, with reduced income, which would in turn limit the amount of cotton it was likely to purchase. This would raise the cost of living in the South and would cut into the profits of New England's industrialists. The Tariff of 1827 was called the Tariff of Abominations by the Southerners. Now, an abomination is something that causes disgust or hatred. So Southerners opposed the tariff that benefited the North but devastated the South economically. This ultimately led to Adams' defeat to Jackson in the presidential election. However, Jackson had to deal with the repercussions. President Jackson was forced to deal with growing conflicts over the tariffs, with the question of an individual state's right to disregard a law passed by Congress being at the heart of a growing conflict over tariffs. So, do the states have the rights to nullify a federal law or a federal tax? Jackson's vice president, John C. Calhoun from South Carolina, supported the southern states' objections to the tariff. Calhoun advanced the states' rights doctrine, which stated that the state's power is greater than the power of the federal government because the states had formed the national government. This implied that the states could nullify or reject a federal law that they judged to be unconstitutional, spurring the nullification crisis. Remember that. Calhoun's theory was viewed as controversial to many Northern and Western Americans. Andrew Jackson openly disagreed with Calhoun and forced him to resign as vice president over the nullification crisis, the idea that the states' rights are more powerful than the federal government. Viewing the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions of 1798 and 1799 as early discussions on states' rights, Daniel Webster debated Robert Hayne in the Senate on the nullification issue. Webster argued that the United States was one nation, a pact among independent states. President Jackson would urge Congress to pass a lower tariff in 1832. Jackson ultimately opposed nullification but was worried about the possible collapse of the Southern economy. South Carolina enacted a nullification act to avoid the tariffs, and in response, Congress passed another lower tariff compromise. These arguments over states' rights would continue all the way until the American Civil War. So now we have Jackson and his argument about the national bank and what he believes in it. So President Jackson did not always support a strong central national government. He supported slavery in the slave states, and he opposed the power of the Second Bank of the United States. Jackson believed that a national bank that held all of the country's funds was unconstitutional, and that the money and the banking power should belong to the individual states. The southern states also opposed the Second National Bank because they felt that it only benefited the wealthy merchants of the North. In 1818, James W. McCulloch, a cashier at the Second National Bank in Maryland, refused to pay the tax that was designed to limit the bank's operations, and in 1919, the case was taken to the Supreme Court. The result was that the state of Maryland could not tax the national bank because the Supreme Court stated that the states could not tax federal entities, and that the Second Bank of the United States was indeed constitutional. President Jackson would later revoke the renewal of the bank's charter in 1832 because of his anger against it. Now, President Jackson's response worried Northern merchants. He demanded that funds were to be taken out of the Second Bank of the United States and to have the funds transferred into state banks. The state banks would then use these funds to give credit to land buyers. The process helped the expansion of the United States, but caused serious inflation. President Jackson tried to slow the inflation by ordering Americans to only use gold and silver to purchase land, which did not help the economy at all. Jackson's actions against banking and his inflation policies opened the door for economic trouble, leading to the Panic of 1837, which was a depression that lasted almost a decade. So Jackson decided not to run for president again in 1836. Remember, up until this time, presidents could run for more than 2 terms. And Vice President Martin Van Buren was nominated and elected. Van Buren ran against 4 opponents from the new upcoming party named the Whig Party, the W-H-I-G, Whig Party. Now, the Whig Party painted Jackson as wanting absolute power and acting as a king. The Whigs supported a weaker executive branch, which is the president, and a stronger legislative branch, which is Congress. The Panic of 1837 was blamed on Van Buren, even though it was Jackson's policies that contributed to the Depression. And in the election of 1840, Martin Van Buren was defeated by the Whig candidate William Henry Harrison, and this will spurn on a few presidents getting elected from this new Whig party. All right, I'll see you next time.